The Column of Cure is back with another video. Today, as you know, we will be conducting a session on litigation as career by none other than Advocate Swarnendu Chatterjee. He is an AOR and presently working in L&L Partners. So we are starting the session. I hope you all enjoy.
Thanks for the brief introduction, and I would like to start the session by wishing you all a good evening on a Sunday afternoon, and hope you are coping up well with this lockdown, which is getting extended day by day. And whatever it is, let us start with this. Litigation as a career. Now, it's a very like jurisprudential kind of a topic, like which is very easy to like say and give a lecture on, but it's fairly difficult to execute in a real life situation, and it depends on person to person. Just like we have those dictums which say case to case basis. So nonetheless, I would try and give you certain tips and ideas as you are all graduating, as all graduating students or budding lawyers who are just 1 or 2 years into the profession can take some cue out of it. Like first, I would like to address on the notion that the if we start with litigation, then we will earn less, and if we started from the corporate side, we would earn more. And that is why people go into firm, like corporate teams of firms, and or in-house, or let's say LPOs and all, just to have a starting with their just have a starting with their like earnings. So it's a it's completely not a wrong notion, but yes, it's technically wrong to say that a particular field of law will give you more leverage and the other field won't give you. Now, we all know that litigation, it takes time. As a medical professional also will take time to flourish in the profession. Every profession will take its own time to flourish. There is a subtle difference between a job and a profession. A job is what you do 9 to 5, but a profession is what you live on. Basically, what you practice. It's what your passion is. So, like in a professional life, there are a few hurdles in the beginning, which will obviously be a little cumbersome. Number one. Number two, you have to sacrifice a lot. You have to sacrifice a lot. Sacrifice how? Sacrifice by giving up certain amount of time for a certain amount of free time which you would have enjoyed if you were in a job. Then while going to a senior's chamber, you have to spend 12 to 13 hours or 14 hours on a case, and then you'll get to earn not in accordance with what your friends are earning in a corporate firm or in a company initially. But you see, if you look at the bigger picture, like initial years of struggle, if it bears fruits later on in your career, like say 5 years down the line or 6 years down the line, then it will have a greater impact. You see, it will be of you should see a bigger picture rather than a immediate goal. That's what I feel. And once you start your career, once you make up your mind to plunge into the darkness, like litigation is a sea of darkness only. You don't know where will you land up. The first thing which you need to know is that with whom will you start your career with? A senior advocate, an advocate on record, or a junior counsel or a counsel, a litigation firm, where like whoever will feed you with the with more variety of work. I think you should go there. You should not have a specific area like I don't do this, I don't do that kind of a situation. It should be more or less a all kind of like jack of all trades kind of a thing. You should do everything, right from district courts to high courts. You should do everything. You should brush up your drafting skills, research skills, and appearance skills. The more you go, the more you appear, the more you will get acquainted to the court and its practice and the court craft, what to say at what point of time. Simply knowing the law won't help you much. It has to be an execution in a proper manner. If it has to be an execution in proper manner, then you have to execute the same. You cannot just say that I did this, I did that, and then you falter on the platform. Next is what what do like lower court practice, how much is it important? Of course, lower court practice is important if somebody wants to take up complete civil side or a criminal or criminal side of practice. Now, criminal basic criminal side and basic civil side is something which you need to know about. Now, the thing is, like civil procedure code and the criminal procedure code is something which you should know if you are doing a civil, if you're planning to do a civil side practice or a criminal side practice. You should be able to One should be able to know the basics. Of course, you won't know the entire procedure in what happens in court, but as a final year student or as a fourth year student, if one decides that okay, litigation is the field where I want to go, so start reading up on the basics of CPC and CRPC and read a few judgments on basic things like and then you attend courts for knowing the art of examination in chief, cross examination, so and how to draw, how to present your pleadings, exactly what is to be said at which point of time, then how to present a first appeal, how to present a second appeal, then basic things like court fees, like stamps, etc., surveys, but then how copies are to be how copies are to be taken out in court, applying applying for a certified copy, etc. All these things will come out. Like many people will think this is a clerk's job, but this is not a clerk's job. This is an advocate's job. If you can't, if you can't do all these things, then the clerk will befool you someday and go away. So my advice to budding lawyers would always be that if you wish to pick up a civil side or a criminal side practice, please brush up your skills and please intern continuously with a lawyer whom you want to join, or at least for a year before prior to joining him. That I think would suit you. If you want to join the high court practice or the supreme court practice, those practices are a bit different, because those practices are on more. Suppose you want to join an appellate side lawyer, writ court lawyer, or a original high court original side lawyer, or a commercial, or somebody who does commercial matters, arbitration matters. So you have to, before joining a person, you should know, you cannot go all of a sudden and expect that he or she will trust you with all kinds of work. Sorry, it can't happen. It will only, a person should know what to do in his career in the final year. You cannot just sway from this side to that side. If you wish to join a red court lawyer, intern with him for a year or so, or 6 months. Get to know his style of working. Each lawyer has his own style. Each lawyer has his own way of thinking. So you need to, one needs to know that. One needs to be aware of that. And then, like uh, the law school, the present syllabus, like the bar council syllabus, is more or less fine. You see, you can't have a detailed course on CPC, CRPC, then it will eat up 4 semesters, and like you will be done with your law school. This 5-year phenomena has not failed as such, but it is quite good enough. You have to, basic idea you need to read on yourself. See, no law school in the world will spoon feed you. So the basic procedural laws like CPC, CRPC, evidence, and all these, some procedural laws are there which you need to know. The Constitution, of course, you need to know before like some of the basics, like what does Order 7 say, what does Order 8 say, how does a summon get served, what is an impediment, what is an impleader suit, or like what is Order 7 Rule 11, what are the grounds for rejection of a plaint, what is the difference between rejection and return of a plaint, and like when can you file a like a cross objection or something. What do you mean by a cross appeal? What do you mean by different kinds of pleadings are there? Like when can you apply for an anticipatory bail, what are the factors to be considered for an anticipatory bail, what is a bail, what is a suspension of sentence, how do you argue in criminal appeal, how do you apply, how do you appear and apply your mind in in an anticipatory bail situation in a high court, in district court. Like these are all few things which you need to observe and learn. You cannot just walk into a court and say that I know the law, I know anticipatory bail 438 of CRPC, and I'll start arguing. No, sorry, it can't happen. You have to. And second, while you draft in litigation, the two most important things are presence of mind and writing the correct things. So once you complete drafting, please go and see exactly what you have drafted and what you have drafted. Number one. Number two, go before you submit to your senior or file the pleadings in court. Please go through it over or at least 2 times so that you don't miss out on anything. And you have to be a thinking person. Like you have to do permutation and combination for a lot of things. Like if and you have to think from the perspective of a partisan lawyer, like a devil's advocate. Like from if the other side comes up with such type of arguments, then what will you do? So these are the few things which should be kept in mind while you start your career. And lastly, of course, remuneration does play a part, but it cannot play a major part. As I have spoken about in my interview with your column, like, which was published 1.5 months back, that it is not this. It is one of the criteria, but it is not the sole criteria. Like my senior in the law firm, Mr. Beg, always tells me, and my late senior, late Mr. Rao, always used to tell me that please go through your draft couple of times before you submit. It really helps. It really helps. I tell my juniors and my interns also that please go through your draft and go through whatever you need to go through whatever you need to do before you submit your work. Otherwise, it does take a toll, because you end up doing mistakes which you don't intend to do. Then it leaves a bad mark on your career or on your performance as such. And like let us get down to how does get down to a frequently asked question, that how does one cope up when especially somebody is a first generation lawyer in his or her career. Like for a there is like godfather. Of course, everybody says I am a first generation lawyer and I don't have a godfather. Like godfather does help, but ultimately in before the court only you have to perform. You are X person's son or Y person's daughter, or Y person's son-in-law, daughter-in-law won't help you too much. It can help you for the initial 1 or 2 years, but if you can't perform, there are so many examples, live examples of great fathers and unworthy sons, or not so great fathers but very worthy sons, and worthy fathers and worthy sons. You see, Mr. Nariman and Justice Nariman, both are greats. Can anybody say that Justice Nariman is just because where like his like of where the great Nariman sir is? Of course, both are equally good, and we are not here to judge anybody's greatness. So basically, basically being a first generation lawyer, a challenge is a bit tougher compared to a second generation or third generation. But ultimately, if you have a clear sense of mind that what you want to do, what you propose to do in your career, of course that thing will sway aside, and you have to like work. As I said, you have to work a bit hard. Like you have to be with your senior, and you have like, always remember, when you attend your chamber, come 10 minutes early and leave 5 minutes late, and read cover to cover of the file, because you never know which document will give you which idea. You should be thorough on your law and never get swayed away by a senior advocate appearing on the other side. There will be seniors appearing on the other side. You should be thorough with your law and thorough with the subject matter of which you are reading. Read up the law, read up the statute, read up the precedents, and then advise your client and like assist the court as the officers of the court. Then only you will be able to succeed in your career, and money will come like that. Like, and often I get a question from people that will moot courts help? Moot courts will help you to build your CV in a certain way, but not entirely. Moot courts and real courts are completely different. Moot courts have hardly any role to play. I know many people will disagree with me, but in my career, I've done only one moot, but you see me right now. Like, moot courts and real courts are totally different. Moot courts adjudicated, you don't have like a person's brief, a person's responsibility on your shoulders, a company's responsibility on your shoulders. While in a real court, you will have that. And moot courts, judges, of course, you have nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose means a competition. A competition is not a life changer or a game changer as such. Even if you win JSFs and you are a exceptionally bad counsel, nobody will come to you because you have won JSFs. It will obviously create a hysteria for a certain amount of time, but the hysteria will die out. Like today, today who are great counsels or like going to be good counsels or senior counsels, how many of them have like a large mooting experience? Maybe one, maybe two, maybe none. So moots, I don't think it's a huge thing. Of course, internship you have to take very seriously. Internship is very serious. Just internship cannot be like a playground or just like a post office kind of a job where what you do and just submit to your senior. Just don't do this kind of a job. Be very serious about it. And like litigation, and for litigation to be taken as a career, it's a profession which you wish to live for. Like for the first few years, you will have limited remuneration and more work. Like, and you cannot get swayed away with the earning which your friend is having right now. Maybe you are earning now 25 to 30,000, but in 2 years to come, that 30 can change to 50, maybe 70 also. But your friends who are earning 50 right now in a company, in 2 years time the increment cannot go up to like 50%. But in litigation, today you are earning 50, tomorrow you can earn a lakh. That depends upon your hard work and how you perform. Remember, you should not come out of the court feeling sorry for your client. Sorry for your client you may feel, but you should feel from inside that I have given 100% or 200%. And the client cannot say, "Oh, sir, you have not argued well." And your research should be to the point, everything to the point. You should have an answer. You should always have a working mind so that you get an answer for the court, right? So now I open the floor to Namrata for question answer session, if any.
As you said, that internships are very important, but
Yeah.
so there are times when interns are also shown less confidence from their seniors. They
Yeah.
are purposefully not given work. Then what should they do? Like in that sense, in a chamber, or
I'll
how should they prove or
I'll tell
something?
I'll tell you. Suppose somebody goes to a law firm, a tier one firm through, like, see, I'll speak from an NLU and a non-NLU concept also. Like from top NLUs, you will obviously have an RCC and a like proper internship procedure. Everybody has a proper internship procedure right now. So you cannot say that this is not proper, that is not proper. It's actually basic. It's actually what I can tell you from my experience. Like people will have their own alumni sitting there if they are from the top 5 NLUs or top 6 NLUs. So they will basically have a platform to start with, like a godfather in a profession, a platform to start with. Okay, you have a name, so that presumption. So you have to basically work a bit hard to distinguish that presumption. Yes, Namrata, you are right. Sometimes people show this discomfort of giving interns much work. But you see, suppose you want to do litigation. Let's see, you want to do litigation now. Of course, you can try in tier one firms, no doubt about it. If you know, so now if you suppose you go to a tier one firm, now you have to like for a simple research also, you have to give it within time and within a proper framework. Like you, whenever an associate gives you work, suppose in 1 week you get one work, and that work you do it. Like say somebody gives you a research proposition, you ask them, "Sir, by when do you need it?" He will tell you, obviously, by when do you need. then whatever work comes your way, do it to the best of your ability and say, sir, can I assist you more? Or ma'am, can I assist you more? If he or she is like a general internship program, like everybody thinks if this person has come for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, what this person will do. So actually this is quite this happens. So more so I would suggest, if you want to have a litigation as a career, then one should always start from courts, not from very courts and like litigation, pure litigation firms where you will get pure litigation work. Like you see Karanjawala, they have a pure litigation background. You see our firm, LNL Partners Litigation. You see Khaitan and Company, you see Amarchand. They will have a pure litigation team which will give you much work. And then you have to you have to come and ask for work. And sometimes, of course, there are low periods of a firm when you don't have much work. But you see, you have to balance out. And the first work you do is actually creates an impression. Like the research. If you do an off the track research, of course, the interest will go up. But each person will get one chance, and that chance you have to capitalize on. Yes.
My next question is that what are the obstacles that you faced personally for becoming an EOR?
See, the obstacles as such, if the road was tough, I'll quote my senior over here. Like the road was tough. It had twists and turns, but I found my way like this. Like when I came to Delhi, I had a job of only 25,000 from LexisNexis, and I was I'm from KLS only, and that time KLS was only having one batch in the market. We were the second batch. So basically we were not a name as such. Now we are a name, of course. We have at least 30 to 40 people in tier 2 for tier 1, tier 2 firms. At tier 1 itself we have. So like so the situation has changed. So when I landed in Delhi, I told myself maybe 6-7 months, then I would pave my way to a Supreme Court senior. Like, and I came in contact with Mr. Rao, because at that point of time I was talking about opportunities. So when I was with Lexis, I got an opportunity to edit a book written by Mr. Rao, reclaiming the vision. He was editing it with one advocate right now, Professor Lokendra Malik. So I came in contact with Dr. Malik. And I met Mr. Rao at that point of time. We had a couple of conversations, and like I expressed my desire to work with him. He told me to wait for a few months, and after a few months he called me. He took my interview, and he took me as a part of his chamber, and provisionally I was taken for a year. And and that provision, after 6 months only, sir told me that you will be a part of my chamber. So like in those 6 months I had no breaks, no Sundays, no Saturdays. Morning 8 o'clock to evening 10 o'clock or 10:30 and even 11, I used to work. I did not think like this work is mine or that work is mine. Whatever work came my way, whatever research came my way, I did it. So and thereafter I was given, when slowly I progressed in my career with him in the chamber, I got to work with him on some big matters like GNCTD versus Union of India, the Kejriwal Najib Jung fight. And it came up, it was fought before the Delhi High Court, the Supreme Court. Thereafter I worked with him in a few matters in Andhra Pradesh, in Karnataka, in say in Jharkhand High Court. In Jharkhand High Court we defended a high stake matter for MMPC, and thereafter I did a matter with him called the famous entry tax matter, the 9-judge bench matter before the Supreme Court. And we did, as he was a constitutional stalwart in the country, we used to get a lot of matters which were of constitutional and national importance. Then we did a matter for Delhi International Airport on the national civil aviation policy in 2016. That was the last notable matter which I did with him, along with the entry tax matter. So and I did a couple of original suits also in Supreme Court with him. So got and there the kind of amount of work I used to put in, it was like he made me put in, and thereafter I used to take interest. He used to tell us always that one has to be an indispensable junior, and one has to be a part of it. So I slowly tried to become an indispensable part, and I became an indispensable part by 2006 2015 end. So by sheer working, and if you work hard, no, people are bound to notice you. So but as they say, tragedy struck, and like Mr. Rao had passed away. Mr. Rao passed away in September 2017, and then I didn't have much options to look for. And of course, at that point of time, I should always thank Mr. Narasimha, the former Additional Solicitor General and Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, who took me as a chamber junior and helped me for 6-7 months to build my career. And thereafter time came for my AOR training. For becoming an AOR, you need to train as an advocate on record for a year with an AOR with a standing of 10 years or more. So I worked with a boutique firm and an AOR for like from April 2018 to November 2019. By that time, I had given my AOR exams. I had appeared in few of the notable cases. Like, I first discovered my interest with IBC when Sanderson Morgan, a noted firm in Calcutta, had entrusted its matter to me of Nico Corporation before Justice Mukhopadhyay in NCLAT. Thereafter, I got another matter called Moser-Beer Karamchari Union, which is the leading judgment at this point of time. Like from Moser-Beer and from Nico, my career started rising. Like, one case will obviously turn around your career. So after that case, I got several cases, of course. And the main point of inspiration, see, people will say that people might tell you in future that this person's father is a senior advocate. Yes, I admit my father is a designated senior in Calcutta High Court, but you see a difference. My father is well known in Calcutta, but being well known in Calcutta is not equally being well known in Delhi. My father always practiced in Calcutta. He had appeared in SLP admissions, and SLP admissions last like he appeared sometimes in Supreme Court. So he had only one known AOR of his back here and 2-3 friends. But always remember, as an AOR, or as a junior counsel, somebody can't be so coercive in nature to actually push you through a senior advocate's chamber. And of course, who knows Mr. Rao? People who know Mr. Rao will obviously tell people that no influence could have deterred him. So one needs to be a self-made man like that and work hard. Like, nobody else wrote an AOR exam for me. Nobody argued those cases for me, and nobody got those cases for me. Moser-Beer was a case from Greater Noida, and I did it before NCLAT. Then I had clients from all over Bombay. I had clients from Madhya Pradesh. I had clients from Uttar Pradesh. I had clients from Punjab. I had clients from Haryana, like, who followed just after. So this was a part of my journey, and of course in 2019 December I came in talks with Luthra and Luthra partners, and of course January 2020 I joined them, and it has been a fantastic journey with my partner Wasim Beg, and of course he's a mentor by far and the best which I would have got in a litigation office. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Sir, this is Shorojit Mukherjee.
Yeah.
Sir, according to what should we keep into mind when arguing before a judge?
You should be very clear about, like, say you want to get a case admitted. Now there are several steps of arguing, whether you are arguing a fresh matter or whether you are arguing a final hearing matter. For arguing, these are the two sets of matters. Like, for a fresh hearing matter, you just want to get the case admitted. So you have to know the basic points where you want the judge's attention to go, the basic flaws or the basic travesty of justice which has happened, or violation of norms, rules, regulations where exactly has happened, and show him the relevant rule, show him the relevant pleadings, and show him the relevant prayer, and take him to 1 or 2 documents. Like, put up your best case before the judge, and your case will be admitted. If you were to challenge an impugned order, so you show him exactly where the order has gone wrong on law. First, you show him the page where the order has gone wrong, where show him the page of the impugned order where which you want to attack, and then you tell him why this is wrong. Show him the relevant page or document which you want to rely on for that fact, or the judgment on, or the statutory position to which it is completely against. So this is what you need to do for an admission matter or a fine. Now come to a final hearing matter. Final hearing matter, you should have your written submissions ready. You should give your written submissions on facts and as well as on law, what you need to submit. Page wise, para wise, you should have a noting which page, which para to say. Then while the other person is arguing, then you need to note what the other person is arguing, and then you give your submissions or reply on that. Basically, you should know your brief very well. You should know the facts well. You should know the law well. So, like, you will argue, and whatever the judge asks, if you have an answer, tell him yes, this is the answer to the point. If you don't have an answer, tell him at this point of time I don't have, but I'll come back to it. Yes.
So finally, I have a question.
Yes.
Suppose that I want to in future want to join a law chamber or any place where I want to practice litigation, and firstly they will take me as intern only. So what should I prepare and go, and how should I go, so that they just tell me what I have to do and I go through that particular matter properly and approach them with it? Research methodology, basically.
You want to ask me how do you research, basically, right?
Yeah.
Once you join a chamber, what you do is, like, you get a file. You will start with a list of dates. Basically, always start with a list of dates. List of dates will obviously give you a basic idea of what is happening in the matter. Always try and get to the rock bottom, or the spinal cord of the matter. Then no problem will be a problem for you. So basically, once you have a list of dates in your mind, you will find the exact problem. For having a comprehensive list of dates, you need to go through the entire file. So you read all the documents, and the petition as well. So basically, you will find what the case is basically based on. Then after those facts are noted down in a chronological manner, then you research on that proposition. Try to frame a proposition, a question of law, like what rights or what has been infringed, or why has he come to the court, what relief does he seek. So for this fact and this relief, what is the point I should attack? What are the judgments to it? What does the statute say? So this is the entire research. This is the research methodology one should take. Like suppose you work in a firm or a chamber which deals with say high court matters. Like for a writ petition, you read the documents, you prepare a list of dates, you read the documents, understand, discuss with your senior, take out the relevant judgments, and read the entire file. By reading the entire file properly, you will get to know at least what the petitioner is asking and what relief is he seeking, or if he has come up in appeal against a, let's say, administrative order under 226, 227 jurisdiction. So what does the impugned order say? Where it has gone wrong? Why is he challenging that? What is his grievance? Ask yourself these questions, and always have this in mind. I need to prepare a comprehensive list of dates. That will help you in every kind of litigation.
Sir, do you want to give any suggestions or any share words to encourage the young law aspirants and everyone?
Money should not deter you from joining litigation. Litigation has its own charm. And if you can obviously survive the initial years and be focused about your career, you will go a long way. Nobody is an idiot. Nobody can stop you from becoming what you want to achieve. If you are determined to work hard and work well and honestly. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed an enlightening and quite interesting session with you. Hope you
Yeah.
have enjoyed the session.
Thank you.